Hello Wastelanders, Vlad here, and today I'm going to show you how to build your very own Wasteland Gazebo in your Fallout 76 camp. Let's jump on in. Here we are at our starting point for this build, and it is a single foundation. Now if you're building in your camp, make sure you give yourself a good amount of space from the edge of your build, because we're going to need to build out from this, and we don't want to run out of space. So grab yourself another foundation, and what we're going to do is we're going to turn it to where it is at an angle, and the center of it is at the point of the foundation. It doesn't have to be at a perfect angle or anything like that, but pretend you're trying to make an X going through the center of that original foundation by placing these. And you're going to do that for all four corners. I find it's very beneficial to choose a pattern of your foundation that has a very clearly defined center line for this, which is why I chose this pattern that you see me working with here. We can always change those once we're finished, but you should have something that looks like this at this point in the build. Now what we're going to do is we're going to place some foundations behind those ones we just placed, and that's going to give us a snap point to remove some things and then put other ones back in their place later in the build. But what we want to do is put down a wall, then choose yourself a roof set that can be edited into an angled roof from a flat roof. So that includes the glass wall set, the Brotherhood of Steel roof set, the log cabin roof set, and the haunted house roof set. So make sure you choose one of those roof sets because we're going to place them flat from that original wall, and then we're going to edit the internal one to where it has an angle upwards towards the center. What that switch from being flat to angled does is breaks the snap point, and the game will now allow us to remove that wall underneath it without giving us an error. But what we want to do is we want to go ahead and set up a flamethrower and actually destroy that roof before we remove the other roof and wall. The reason we're destroying it is because we're going to put other roofs that will eventually intersect with that one, and having it destroyed will allow us to get those in place without it giving us a object intersects with another existing object error. So make sure that you destroy that angled roof, and if you put it down and it angles the wrong way, then just flip it and then go ahead and edit it to the right angled roof. And again, you're going to flamethrower trap that angled roof and then remove the flat roof and wall from the structure. And you're going to do this for all four of those foundations we set during the first step of the build. So this is what we should have at this point when you're outside of the build menu. And when you're inside the build menu, it should look something like this. Now go ahead and store the foundations that we put in place during the first step, the ones that are barely touching the corner of your original center foundation. And what we want to do is replace those with these porch sets, because we're going to want to put in some railing here, and the railing snaps to these porch sets. So we're going to put them in place of those original foundations. And then go over to your defenses category and find yourself the railing that snaps into these type of porches. If you have multiple sets purchased, you may have some options. I'm going to go with this haunted house one that has these cool vines kind of growing off of it. I think that's a good little effect for a gazebo, so I'm going to use those. But choose the ones you want right now, because at the end you're not going to have these foundations in place to snap something in later. So choose the right ones at this point. I'm not sure if it'll let you edit these to the different styles once they are in place. But then we're going to store those porch sets, leaving those railings floating. And then we're going to grab our trusty flamethrower. Now remember to store the flamethrower every once in a while to restore its durability, so you don't have to spend extra resources repairing it. But go ahead and activate it to destroy each one of these 4 railings that we just put in place. And then we'll be able to move on to the next step of the build. Now that all of our railings are destroyed, we should have something that looks like this inside of the build menu. And we're going to go ahead and grab our floors again, and we're going to build 3 foundations coming off of that center foundation at each one of its 4 sides. The reason I'm building so far out is because I want that outer foundation as a platform to stand on, because we're going to shift that innermost foundation that is attached to the center out to meet these railings that we destroyed, and that just gives me a level platform to walk on instead of having to deal with the terrain that's underneath me and that throwing off my alignment. So I'm going to stand on this foundation, and then I'm going to grab the one that's in front of me, and I'm just going to pull it, and I want to pull it out to where the center line, or the line edge of it, is kind of barely intersecting these 2 railings. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you'll notice that some of my railings are slightly off. They don't intersect with this foundation at exactly the same point. That's perfectly fine. We're going to tidy that up at the end with a little bit of a trick, and we're going to be able to hide some of the imperfections there. So don't worry about being perfect with these. Just make sure you get them to where that edge of that foundation has a very slight overlap with those 2 railings in place. And we're going to do that for all 4 of the sides, and then we can move on to the next step. Now that those are in place, we're going to do the same thing that we did with the original first set of foundations to get roofs in place. So we're going to put down our wall. We're going to go ahead and put down our flat roof, and then we're going to put down our internal flat roof. Go ahead and edit it to being a angled roof, and then we're going to get out our trusty flamethrower stuck on our cabinet stash box so that it's at a good height. And then we're going to bring it over, and we're going to destroy that angled roof, and we're going to store the flat one and store the wall that everything was attached to. Now, this is time consuming, and it takes up the most time of the build. It's not technically hard, but it does take time waiting on the flamethrower to destroy, to move on to the next piece. So, if you can find yourself a friend that you trust that can engage you in PvP while at your camp, while you're building, and not with the objective of not killing you, but helping you destroy things, then you can have them be the flamethrower and destroy the panels of roofs that you need destroyed, and it will save you a lot of time. I had a good Samaritan player come by. I thought they were going to grief me while I was working out on the concept for this, but what they did is they picked up their mic and they told me they wanted to help me with the build. So I would build what I needed and then tell them what I needed destroyed, and they would destroy it for me real quick. And it was so much faster than using the flamethrower. So if you do have a friend that can help you with destroying stuff, then I suggest doing that, because it'll make putting this together a lot faster. But once you've done this for all 4 of the foundations, we'll be able to move to the next step of the build. So you should have something that looks like this in the build menu once you have those sets of roofs in place. And now we can store every foundation that we have out except for the original center foundation. Do not store that original center foundation. We will in just a little bit, but we're going to use that center foundation to offset what will become our final base of foundations. Ignore that set of stairs that I have over there. It's there in error. But grab yourself, you have two ways to offset this foundation so we get a perfect base underneath our gazebo. The first one is using the catwalk. So use the catwalk with the length of 1/2 foundation, and we're going to go one out and one over with a set of foundations with the catwalks in between. Now do remove the stuff. We're going to have to remove the catwalks first, and then we can slide over this foundation to the one that we've placed at the very end. Okay, so that's offset our foundations so we can get a nice clean base. But if you don't want to use the catwalks, you can use the stairs by placing a set of stairs going upwards attached to the central foundation, a upper floor, and then another set of stairs going down, and then putting a foundation attached to those second set of stairs, and then you can store all of the stairs. And then we can build our vertical offset by placing a set of stairs going the opposite direction than we originally did. And we will again put our upper floor, another set of stairs going down, and then a foundation attached to that second set of stairs, and then we will remove all of the stairs and upper floors. But the result is the same no matter which one you go with. You will end up with a set of foundations offset where we need them to become the foundation of this gazebo. So we're going to walk the foundations underneath our structure, and what you'll notice is that with that offset we get a nice centered set of foundations under the gazebo. Now this is where I'm having trouble with that set of stairs that was down that I told you to ignore, so I'm just going to store those and then put down the foundations where we wanted them. And what we're going to do here once we get these in place is we're going to set a set of central stairs on the side where we want our entrance. So you should have something that looks like this at this point in the build. Now before we go any further, we want to set our stairs for our entrance. So choose whichever one of the open areas in between the railings that you want to be the entrance to your gazebo. Go ahead and attach one foundation in front of it, and then store the two that were underneath. And then I'm going to offset this foundation up front by 1/2 of a foundation. I'm using the catwalks to do this simply, but you can also use the stair trick that I showed you just a second ago. And we're just going 1/2 off so that we can get this foundation in place over here that is centered on what will be our entrance. And make sure you leave one foundation that is adjacent to it in place. And then we're going to grab our stairs and place them down. And because we have that adjacent foundation, it'll actually let us remove this foundation where the stairs are attached, and then we can remove that adjacent foundation, leaving just the stairs in place. And then you can go ahead and snap in the foundations that we originally had, and again they're centered on that gazebo, but it should look like this. And now we're going to fill in these gaps in the places that aren't our entrance by using this railing, more of a vault railing type style. And we want it to kind of just go from the end point of one railing to the end point of the other railing. And since these are destroyed, it's going to allow us to put that in place without much of a problem. There may be some places where it's red, but where we want it to go, it'll be green, and you shouldn't have any problem putting it in. So you're going to do those 3 places and leave the one where your stairs are at empty. But then get out your flamethrower and go ahead and destroy these. They are a bit of a pain to try and destroy, so I recommend putting the flames of the flamethrower parallel to the bar so that it hits it pretty much direct on and it will destroy it faster. Otherwise, there are places where it decides that the flamethrower doesn't intersect with it and it won't destroy it. But go ahead and get all 3 of those destroyed. And now we need to put in some support. So we don't want a floating roof for a gazebo. We want it to look supported. So we're going to use that blueprint I showed you. And to build that blueprint, you need a foundation. And we're going to use the snap point of the stair posts. But before we put the stair posts in place, we're going to put a rug down over the snap point. So then grab your stair posts, put 2 stacked on each other, and use the short ones for this build. You could do double tall ones, but for this build, use the short ones. And then blueprint the 2 poles and that rug together as a blueprint. And I learned this trick from Aquanova. If you haven't seen Aqua's channel, then I'll leave a link in the description because it's a really cool channel and you should check it out. But we're going to use this blueprint. And even though it's red, the game doesn't care. It's going to let us place it where we want it. And what we're doing is we're putting these poles in place where they're covering up the intersection of that wooden railing with the metal vault railing. And it's going to give us a nice clean look when we're done. And again, it's red. We don't care. The game doesn't care. It's going to let you place it anyway. So just ignore that it's red and go ahead and tell it to place, and you'll notice that it does it anyway without any errors. This is only going to not give you errors if you have everything destroyed like I've asked you to do. And then we're going to go to the beginning where we have our entrance and go ahead and just cover up the ends of those railings to create our entrance area. And then we can store all these rugs that are underneath the poles. Be very careful removing these rugs because you don't want to accidentally scrap one of these flamethrower pieces, because you're going to have to start over in certain areas if you accidentally scrap it or store something you didn't want to. But that's what it looks like in the build menu and what it looks like outside. Then when you repair it, you get a nice clean gazebo, and then you can decorate it and you'll get something pretty cool like what I've done here with this one. But that's it for everybody. That is how you build your own Wasteland Gazebo in your Fallout 76 camp or workshop. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest content from Vladministrator Gaming. And until next time, I'll see you in the Wasteland.